right, aloha everyone from Hawaii. Welcome to the Special Forces Association SF4Life program. It's a webinar that we do quarterly based on the feedback we get from our members of the association. This is our 6th in a series of webinars, and anybody in the organization can find any prior recordings on the website. Today, we have some amazing organizations and individuals to give us some presentations on things that help us in our community. Everything will start out with SOCOM and go with some others that have done some nonprofit work that help our community. And our community is the one that pretty much suffers when you look at the stats from suicides and mental health from all the deployments. And there's a lot of great programs. These are just a snapshot of some of them. And I hope to put a list together of all of them eventually, but we will record this for our brothers who couldn't make it because of whatever other constraints. So with that, I'm going to introduce you to the first one, Sergeant Major Greg Keller from USSOCOM, who is going to be representing the preservation of the force and family. So with that, over to you, Greg.
Hey, all right, thank you. Like you said, I'm Sergeant Major Greg Keller, just Greg Keller, and I am the senior enlisted leader for preservation of the force and family down here at SOCOM. I work hand in hand with, we just got a new director in, Colonel Chuck Lutter. He's actually a special ops aviator from the Air Force. And I just had another 06 retire, and he came from the Rangers. And that's who we have running our shop. And then we have a whole team of GS civilians and a couple of contractors that work here at the headquarters. And what we do is essentially oversee all of the POTFF program across the enterprise. And then each component has their own POTFF programs that they run individually. We just are the general overseers up here at the headquarters. So I will share my screen because I have just a couple slides.
That's the whole thing on the.
Okay. All right. So we'll just, like I said, this is just the introductory slide. It's who I am. So this is essentially the brief I gave last week at Soft Week, or 2 weeks ago at Soft Week. I scaled it down to meet the 10-minute time hack. So we'll get rolling here. So just a quick history of POTFF. POTFF, it stands for Preservation of the Force and Family. So in the 2008 timeframe, several of the components recognized the toll that GWAT was having on our soft service members due to the constant deployments, injuries, all the things that came with that. You are all aware of that. So everybody kind of had different efforts going on over those years. And there were some studies done by SOCOM. But then around 2010 to 12, it really started to become somewhat organized. There was a couple initiatives from SOCOM that were started, but the real ball got rolling in around 2012 when the first budget was formally approved by Congress, and there was an enterprise contract where we were able to send contractors down to the force to fill gaps that were unable to be filled by the services. And then moving through, there was periods of growth and different events that happened through there. Notably, the POTFF directive was published in 2019. We went from 4 domains to 5. They pulled cognitive out of underneath physical domain and made it its own domain. And then right now we are currently in draft form of the 10-12 update that should be published this summer. So that's a lot of history that I got through quick based off our time hack. But just one thing to mention here is that the POTFF covers down on soft specific needs that are unable to be resourced by things the components are able to provide. So it's soft peculiar. That's a word. It's a phrase we use a lot. So it's either additional resources to what the conventional forces provide, or maybe it's some resources that aren't provided at all. All right, so our mission statement, the mission of preservation of the force of families who optimize and sustain performance, readiness, longevity for special ops missions requirements through integrated and holistic programs, strengthening the force and family. That means we look at the whole soldier or the whole service member, and we kind of do that through 5 domains: the physical, psychological, social and family, spiritual, and cognitive. And we have uh, high level GS. Three of the 4 are PhD. One is a master. No, 4 of the 5 are PhD level leads. One is a master's lead. We have very experts in each one of those fields that lead those fields in GS positions here at SOCOM headquarters that sit in the office with me. The spiritual domain lead is a reserve chaplain, and we've been able to fill that position with a reserve chaplain for a while now, and hopefully we continue to do that. But our priorities are enhance the readiness of SOF, coordinate and collaborate with services and academia. We're constantly doing that. The services, as you know, all of our, whether it be NSW or USSOC or First SFC specific, are just constantly pushing the envelope. And we're a bottom-up driven organization, so we're just here to essentially help them where they need it, fill gaps that they're not filling. But with our small office, they outrun our headlights, and they're crushing it. We're just helping them with money and providing direction and guidance when needed. Achieve necessary authorities, which takes up a lot of our time. Every time one of the components pushes the envelope, we run into authorities issues. Usually we're able to figure them out like we always do, but that is a constant something we're constantly in with legal reviews and everything else. And then constant program evaluations to justify our budget to Congress, and then reduce stigma associated with seeking care. So we'll move on. Okay, so these are some questions I knew that y'all would have tonight, and I'm going fast. And if I can recover anything because I'm sure there'll be questions. So, who is POTFF for? This is one of the main questions we always get. So, General Fenton, current SOCOM commander, and the generals before him have coined the term POTFF for all. That means that, well, when POTFF initially started, it was, I want to say limited to, but it was primarily for our soft, or they don't like us to say assessed and selected. They say operators now, like everybody an operator. So essentially, so SEALs, Green Berets, Rangers, controllers, PJs, the assessed and selected operators within the force, and the direct support or direct enablers that accompany them on ops. So that has expanded to, if you are in a SOCOM unit, POTFF resources are for you, which is great. We need to, be inclusive and not inclusive. What's the word? We need to insulate, not isolate, right? But with constrained resources, commanders do have they can use their discretion on how resources are utilized, i.e., whether that's hours at the gym, the POTFF provided gym, whether that's they have to triage based off of physical whatever they decide, they can triage their resources how they see fit. And then families. So this is a hot button topic right now. So a little background on this: we just had a what we call first soft truth event, where the SOCOM commander gets all the 06 commands and command teams and above on some in person, some video chat, but enterprise wide. And we have a whole day where he goes over whatever he thinks is pertinent for that quarter. POTFF, there was a whole day on POTFF last time, and the whole families and what's available to the families came up, and there was numerous things that were said, and then immediate from the general, from our own 06 director, Legal came up to us right away and corrected us on some of that. So I won't get into exactly what we're trying to do, but right now in the new 10-12, hopefully some of our resources will expand to families beyond what's currently available. And right now, all the psychological resources are available. So counseling, behavioral health resources, family counseling, marriage counseling, individual counseling, counseling for your kids, all that is available right now legally for sure. It's in the directive. We are trying to expand somewhat in some other areas, but that is under legal review right now. So without further ado, I will put it out to questions. And mind you, this was an hour brief. I scaled down to 20 minutes and then I scaled it down to 10 for tonight. So you guys got the fast and furious dump.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, thanks, Greg. Yeah, we can definitely wrap up with more slides and more information on the page. One question did show up in the chat from Joe about when are we going to start looking at the high number of cancer among SOF, knowing that cancer may hit the active duty force early on, but a lot of times that is growing over time and it hits us later on after we get out. Any feedback on that being looked at all?
Right. So we as POTFF just can't be like, oh, we're going to do this, right? Our science and technology department, which is outside of POTFF, there is I think don't quote me on this, and I know this is recorded, but I don't know who it might have been the general, somebody. I just saw somebody with some authority come down, starting a study and wants answers on that exact question. So something from SOCOM headquarters right now is being looked into, and that would be pushed. That will be in our S&T's area of responsibility, because they're the ones that ensure that any kind of research and study, we don't use studies we do, are on the absolute highest level of efficacy, right, and accuracy. So that is being looked into right now, and I don't know how long that will take, but it is recognized and it is being studied right now.
Excellent. Anyone else have any pressing? You'll get a chance to ask at the end all the presenters, but if you have anything specific for POTFF, here's your chance. And with nothing heard, hey, Greg, go ahead and kill your sharing. And we're going to bring up the Warrior Path program, progressive alternate training for helping heroes, put on by Chris Yeti Jackson with the Sheepdog Impact Assistance. This is actually one program I've taken advantage of, and it's life-changing. So with that, over to you, Yeti.
I appreciate it. Can y'all hear me okay? All right, good to go. Yeah, Pete, thanks for asking me on here. I appreciate being able to get a little bit of time on all this. So real quick, I represent Sheepdog Impact Assistance, basically a nonprofit, right, for veterans and first responders. We got three core pillars. One is basically disaster response, what we call continued service, to help veterans continue to give and to serve whenever that comes around. We've also got outdoor adventures that we do. And then we have Warrior Path, which is what I do. So the three pillars of the organization out there. We're based out of Rogers, Arkansas, but we have national reach with regard to things. So to talk about Warrior Path a little bit, the path part of it is actually PATH with an extra H. It stands for Progressive and Alternative Training for Helping Heroes. And it is a training course on post-traumatic growth. And that's a key thing for us really to understand, is it's not therapy, it's not treatment. It is a training course on post-traumatic growth. It's the program is 90 days. So it's 7 days of training and then 90 days or another 83 days, if you will, back at home with follow-up things like Zoom calls. We have an app, right, that has follow-ups that occur there. I can talk about a little bit about that at the end also. But the great thing about it is a training course that was created by warriors for warriors. Okay, there's no doctors, there's no therapists or anything like that. It is a peer-to-peer program. All the instructors are either veterans or first responders. We have all been through PATH. We just happen to be a little bit farther down our post-traumatic growth journey than the students go through there. I've been doing this for a little over 4 years now. And It's just amazing every time to see the transformation that occurs just in 7 days that are there. The course itself happens out at a 50-acre ranch that we have, which is just across the border in Missouri. It's actually a working ranch. We got Highland cows on there that we have. I'll have a picture of it in just a minute at the end of it, just to show where it is. But the amazing thing is the course is based on post-traumatic growth. It is a science that has been around for about 35 years. It was essentially the first time that the term was coined was by Dr. Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun back in 1995. And it's based on the lessons learned from survivors of the Holocaust, the POWs, the Hanoi Hilton, adults who have had late onset disabilities or have lost young children. And all these people had one thing in common, which was the ability to go through something very traumatic and then figured out ways in order how to thrive, right, as after they got done with those events. And so the thing that is unique about post-traumatic growth is it doesn't focus on the trauma itself. It focuses on the effects of the trauma, right? How it affects your view of yourself, of others in the world. And we go through and we look at those things over the course of the 90 days. And the work that goes in there. And it is, I can tell you, it is work. It's one of the things that we've taught throughout the course is that there's no magic pills for this, that it didn't take you 7 days to get where you are right now. You're not going to get out of it in 7 days. It is a lifelong journey of continued working as you go through this. And the results are pretty amazing. I don't know if anybody here has ever heard of the PCL5. That is essentially, all of us have taken it. If you've been in the military, it is the document and a set of questions that we take in order to determine whether or not you're in the range of PTSD. And the document is scored from 0 to 80. And if you hit somewhere around a 33, it's said that you have PTSD symptoms. It can include anxiety, depression, and those kind of things. The median, the average students coming through Warrior Path, and I'm going to see if I can share this real quick. Hang on. A median score is about 87. And at the end of 7 days, hopefully you can see this. At the end of 7 days, right? So here's the clinical threshold. If they're up at 47, that at the end of 7 days, that drops down to on average 17. And so what you in 7 days have taken people down from what is considered medium level PTSD down into 17, which is like a daily stress and that kind of thing. And the amazing thing is it's sustained. If they're doing the work, it is sustained all the way out. And so, you know, there's many other ways that this information is captured, but this is just, for me, one of the dramatic ones that shows that. And so you have that basically a 60% sustained reduction of PTSD and its symptoms. And then you have a growth, right, of over 65% in the domains of post-traumatic growth, which include personal strength, deeper relationships, new possibilities, appreciation for life, and spiritual and existential change. So in the course of 7 days, we're seeing this kind of shift happen in people, and it continues on as you go out. That's kind of real quickly, if you will, about the course and the significance of it and what it's able to do. It is a couple of other amazing things is it is fully funded. So whoever comes there, we pay for the travel. Everything is taken care of at the ranch, the whole 9 yards. So an active member or a veteran does not have to worry about paying anything. We're just one of the locations that provides this. There's actually 10 locations, and this is a picture of the ranch that we have. It's at a $1.2 million facility. That's just for the facility itself. It doesn't include the ranch and the horses and everything that is out there with regard to that. And let's see if there's any other notes that I necessarily want to get across here right now. one of the big things is, and I'll hopefully hit this just real quickly. A lot of people talk about the number 22 and how 22 veterans a day are taking their life. I want to kind of throw out the fact that that's not a correct number. If you go through and you look at that survey and the information behind it, it did not include California, Texas, Virginia, Georgia, or Florida. And it also only included 17 states. So when you look at that number, it is significantly lower than what it should be. And it also doesn't include things like those individuals who maybe drank themselves to death or drove themselves into a wall, or you name the other ways. Those were the only ones that were counted were the people who specifically said that they were going to take their own life. So on the back side of everything, right after somebody's service, that number goes up significantly. And one of the more astounding parts of that is 40% of that number, whatever that number actually is, 40% of that is age 55 to 75. So that's one of the reasons for us that we're trying to do what we do, and obviously trying to reach out to not only veterans and first responders, but also into the active duty side to hopefully start to stem the tide of some of this stuff. So I think I'm kind of at the 10-minute mark. The other quick thing is we have the ability to get people into one of 6 TBI locations for free. They're some of the best in the country, and it also a substance abuse. We have Warrior's Heart that we are partners with, and we can get people into those substance abuse. So for us, it's the triumvirate, if you will, that we see out there. It's PTSD, TBI, and substance abuse, and we're able to help out in some form or fashion with individuals who are working through those challenges. So that's the website and for both of them, and an email that you can hit. All right.
Thanks, Yeti. Quick question on, you mentioned 10 different sites. Sheepdog is one of them, and your ranch out in Arkansas. Who's the big umbrellas? Boulder Crest? And then there's a bunch of the United States?
Yeah, no, so it is the big one is Boulder Crest with regard to Warrior Path, but we're actually part of something called Avalon Action Alliance, and that is an overarching one. It was started as actually funded would be a better way to put it, by the 2 owners of Home Depot, Arthur Blank and Bernie Marcus, and the Gary Sinise Foundation. And so those 3 capabilities that I talked about, Warrior Path, the TBI, and the substance abuse, all fall underneath that. And we have regular meetings and talk with each other. So it's an entire partnership that occurs, and we can go in and help somebody out. So yeah, it's a pretty incredible system that we got going.
Awesome. Anybody else have pressing questions for Yeti? All right, nothing heard. We'll head over to the Station Foundation. Kevin Stacy, you're up.
Hey, Pete. First, just thanks for inviting us all here. I think this is great what you guys are doing. My name's Kevin Stacy. Quick background. I served 11 years in the Army. I was the little bird guy at the end, and that's where I transitioned out of back in 12 to really start the station. And back then there was, like, you know, to Greg's point about what was around back in 12 for our community was not a lot. Like the quietest hallway where I worked was the psych hallway. And so, you know, I felt this draw to figure this out. You know, I was seeing it internally in our organization. A lot of quiet suffering, a lot of families going through stuff, hyper resourced, you know, going over and doing what we had to do. And then we come home and just wasn't the level of support that I thought that our community needed and deserved. And so that's really the genesis of the station. So we're headquartered out in Bozeman, Montana. We have a private facility similar to Yeti and the Sheepdog. There's a ton of overlap, I think, with Chris and with Yeti and all these different organizations. And I think that's a really good thing. You know, one, we have a throughput that, you know, we have a choke point and we can only service so many people. And I think it's great to know that I can, you know, hand off a family to Chris and all secure and know that they're going to be taken care of. So I think the community is doing an awesome job of figuring these things out. And I think we each have our own little flavor or style. And so our style is, we offer 9-day immersion programs here in Montana. These programs are based around some core concepts of like immersing ourselves in nature, moving through an experience, similar to combat, similar to the journey of war is the journey of coming home. And I think Yeti mentioned it like, hey, you don't fix this in 7 days, right? Like the Odyssey is a great example of that, right? 10 years of war, 10 years of coming home. And so we look at this as a very long, slow, deliberate process. Our programs are housed in 2 different categories. We call one the homecoming. That's active duty, transitioning, and transition service members and their families. The other one's our legacy project, and that works with Gold Star students ages 8 to whenever they're really done with us. Our homecoming programs, they offer a transition program, programs for spouses, couples, families. We do a wilderness survival program in the summer for dads or service members and kids. And then we offer a hero journey, I guess is the best way to explain, where we pull ancestral and kind of like ancient ceremonies and traditions that have been used for hundreds of years in other cultures, and we adapt them into the soft community and provide a deliberate path that requires a journey home. Similar to Yeti, we offer support both before and after programs. We work with folks up to about 6 months, and then we provide community as well. So a couple of years ago, we started this thing called the Outstation. We created 5 satellite locations across the country in communities with high density of soft. So you've got, San Diego, Virginia Beach, Fayetteville, Lejeune, and then Fort Carson out in Colorado. And our goal there was to offer like bite-sized manageable things that we offer here in Montana. So we've got soft spouses who run them and facilitate. They've been trained through our programming and now deliver programs in their community. And they offer about, 1 event a week, and they tap into different demographics. So, 1 week may be connecting with your kids as a service member. Next week may be couples. Next week may be spouses. And so we like to mix it up to see how many times we can touch a family in different ways. We are a family-centered organization, meaning like everything comes back to the family, right? Like if the spouse isn't good, if the kids are disrupted, it affects that family just as much as that service member coming back into the home. And our goal is really to get these guys back into their communities as leaders. I think it's crazy that our community like sits on the sidelines in our community. And I want to get our guys back in, get these families integrated wherever they end up, right? It could be Missouri, it could be Tennessee, wherever. We want them to feel like they have the confidence and the purpose and the meaning to get back into their communities and continue to serve. We offer some virtual stuff as well. We do some relational stuff. We do emotion coaching for actually dads, which was built by a couple MARSOC guys, which I thought was pretty cool. And we're a small group, so we run light. We're pretty adaptive. We build our own stuff internally, and all of us are facilitators. So we walk with these participants, similar to PATH in a way. Like, hey, we've been through it. We don't think we're experts. We don't think we don't prescribe or tell you you've got to do this. We journey with you, and we experience it with you while you're going through it. So I'm going to get you back on time, Pete. I'm going to give you like 3 minutes back. So I'll cut short. But look, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to talk offline with any of the guys. I think the big thing is like guys are starting to take these resources and use them, particularly the SF community. There's some other parts of the community that are maybe a bit more resistant or slower to come to the table. But what I'm seeing across the border, like families are showing up. And, a couple of years ago, everybody I worked with was active duty. Like 99% were guys either getting on or getting off a C-17. Now I'm seeing a lot of guys who've been out for a few years who are starting to feel what Yeti was talking about. Like, man, I thought I was good. I was going to go help other people, and oh shit, like I'm upside down. And I think that's a great thing that guys are still coming back and that our community still shows up for guys 5, 10, 15 years out. Like it doesn't matter. You're still part of it. And just like to just thank you again, Pete, for being here, and also the other groups that are here to share what they're offering, because it helps us collaborate and work more closely together, because there's plenty of work in this community to offer our services. So just thanks again, Pete, and thanks to the other guys that are here for showing up late this evening and offering what you do.
Hey, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, that's exactly why this program exists, SF4Life. We wanted to let them all know we're here for them and help marry them up with resources. And although we only have 15 people or so on this call, we have 11,000 active members in our database and 11,000 expired members. We still email out to all 22,000 of them. We'll be sending a link of this video, a link to the resources where the slides are posted, if there are slides, and your information to be able to find out more. That's what we're here doing. So anyone have any questions for Kevin? All right, next up, All Secure Foundation. Chris, over to you.
Hey, thanks, Pete. Appreciate the opportunity to be included with this great group of organizations and to be able to speak to your audience. Chris Van Zant, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the All Secure Foundation. All Secure was started by Tom and Jen Satterley, retired Command Sergeant Major Tom Satterley, spent the majority of his career in the Delta Force. You know, Tom went through a myriad of struggles, actually wrote a book about it by the same name called All Secure, where he talked about his journey both through the military and outside of it, and some of the struggles that ensued post-career. And that sort of inspired him and his wife to create this organization. Our primary mission is to assist special operations, both active duty veterans and their spouses, in the recovery from post-traumatic stress. I think, like all of us, we've all dropped a D. It's not a disorder. It's something that you can recover from. But in the recovery from post-traumatic stress through education, awareness, resources for healing, marriage retreats, and resiliency training. Our primary way that we do that is through our coaching and counseling process. Currently we have six, we'll call them full-time virtual counselors or therapists. We call them coaches. Even though they're all highly qualified and licensed, we call them coaches because we operate outside of the system. It allows us to function not in a medical capacity, but in a support capacity. And what we found in doing so is that in addition to reducing the stigma of seeking professional assistance, we know that it's still there. And no matter how many times we beat the drum, it's hard to get people to come forward to get some help. It takes the average operator about 13 years to seek professional assistance from the initial onset of post-traumatic stress symptoms. And so we're trying to do something about that. Our six coaches, if anyone from the SOF community, period, or their spouses, go online to our website, they can sign up for coaching. They get 12 full coaching sessions, whether that's for the individual operator or retired operator, their spouse, a combination of the two, whatever that family would like to do. We give them 12 full sessions, and then we assist them in transitioning into additional care if it's something that they wish to do. If they want to continue treatment or they want to move into professional therapy on the side, we help them and provide resources to navigate that path. I'm not only a representative of the organization, I was also a client. I started on the board with All Secure a few years back, and Tom said to me, hey, you know, would you be interested in talking with one of our coaches so that you understand how the process works? And it might be good for you. He's known me a long time. I've been through a lot of struggles. I'm in a great place in my life and have a wonderful marriage, but I said, sure, we'll try it. And my wife and I started with one of our coaches, Stacy, and we have been with her for 2 years. We finished our sessions initially, and then continued on with sort of, we call it monthly maintenance, not because we need it, but because it makes us a better couple, a stronger couple. And honestly, I met my wife at the tail end of my career. She knew nothing about who I was or what I did. And it took me a long time to sort of break down those walls and help her understand some of my own struggles and how they impact her, which is a good segue into the next thing. We're one of the only organizations out there that focus on secondary post-traumatic stress. If you've never heard of that term, it's something that is relatively new in the community. But in a nutshell, what it is imagine living with one of us as all those years of combat and deployments and all the things that we bring home and all that baggage. eventually you end up in a situation where you walk around on eggshells because you don't know what you're going to say or do that might set off that person or create a reaction that you don't like or want to see. And that can create some trauma within your spouse, within your family unit, within your children. And so we're doing our best to address that as well. That's why we are so adamant about bringing spouses into the program. So coaching is our primary function. That's our bread and butter. That's the thing that, the majority of the donor dollars that come in go towards. But the second thing that we started doing this past year, we've always done marriage retreats in small groups where we have one of our coaches, as well as Tom and Jen and myself sometimes, go on a retreat with 6 or 8 couples, and really focus on some of that resiliency training and some of that familial support, working through PTS issues. We expanded that this past year with what we call our Camp Homefront events. Camp Homefront it's basically a weekend of TED Talks is the best way that I could put it. We bring in a bunch of partner organizations. We bring in a bunch of subject matter experts to talk about various healing modalities related to PTS, TBI, and other trauma-related mental health issues. We cover everything in the course of a weekend, from psychedelic therapies and treatments to sleep, to mindfulness, to stellate ganglion block. And then we also bring in partner organizations like a lot of those that are here today that help fund and support or provide some of those additional healing modalities. We've run 2 Camp Homefronts this past year. Our first one, we had about 150 current or former SOF operators and their spouses, as well as Gold Star wives. It's a weekend kind of out in nature. We offer some activities, but the primary function is to impart knowledge, is to identify a bunch of these resources that are out there for them, give them a medical person that can explain exactly what this can and could do for you, and then give you someone that's been through that particular healing modality to give kind of a narrative of what their experience is like, both good and bad. So we've run 2 this year. We're moving them around geographically. We ran the first one outside of Fort Bragg last spring. We just finished our second one, Camp Homefront South, outside of Nashville, where we had over 200 attendees. We had 14 speakers. Really fantastic turnout and a phenomenal event, and really shows, like some of the other folks have said, how much the community is pulling together. We intend to run one up near Joint Base Lewis McChord and one in the mountain region. We'll probably only get one of those done this year. As you guys all know too well, donor dollars drive the train. So we're doing our best. We're also doing some work to partner with some organizations like Task Force Dagger, because they believe in what we're doing at Camp Homefront. And there's a lot of synergies in all of these organizations because we all do different things, and there's not enough support to go around for the community we're supporting right now. So we hope to continue to do those. Again, we will move those around. If anyone is interested in a Camp Homefront, we post those things on social media about when the next one will be. And signups are all online, just like signing up for our coaching and counseling. So unless there's questions, I'm probably going to stop there and give back a little of my time as well. But happy to answer any at the completion of this. And again, really appreciate the opportunity to speak to your audience and be included with this great group of organizations. So thanks.
Hey, thanks, Chris. Let me put the gallery on here. So I appreciate all the speakers that took some time out, especially later night on the East Coast. I'm going to put in the chat here, anyone and everyone that knows of any organization. Obviously, we just covered 4 highlights here. If you could email me any and all, I will collect and compile all of them for at least our community and share it with others. A consolidated list of these kind of organizations that help our guys. And it's been mentioned many times, limited resources. Some of the missions are the same, some are not. And our community needs this. And especially, I've noticed, I've been retired now for 8 years. The more I run into veterans and folks, especially in our SOF community, the more that they need this, even more than the active duty folks, as they've transitioned from the military, as they've started one job and gone to another job and acclimating themselves to the civilian sector, whether it's finances, whether it's personalities and the age of kids at college and all those stressors. And I'm still running through it myself. So I appreciate that. I'll open the floor up to anybody for questions for anyone on the call.
There it is. This is Joe. I have a question. I posted in here that, Pete, it sounds kind of an old phrase that we grew up with in the military. The old mindset, the old what do you say? It's the indoctrination that we put in the military, suck it up, move on. That carries over, when we get paroled after 20 years for good behavior or whatever the case is. So we're standing out there. What are our veterans? Do they still carry that attitude out there? Is that I'll suck it up. I don't want people to think I can't handle it. It's an uphill battle. I'm the man. I've got my Green Beret. I've got my SEAL Trident. I've been married to this Green Beret guy forever. I'm wife number 3.0. So there's a stigma that we put around their neck that they carry. Okay. How are we getting through to that? How are we breaking up? As I tried to say, is that the only thing harder than introducing something new into the military is taking something old out. Okay. So what are we doing, or do we have ideas or people or a path that we can put them on to realize that maybe everything they've heard has changed and they need to look at themselves and not what someone told them 20 years ago, but look at themselves today? That make any sense what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely does. Because I saw it on active duty. You didn't go on sick call. You didn't build your medical records, especially with an SF community. When you have an 18 Delta on your team, handing you whatever you needed for whatever aches and pains to get through the deployment and training. So it's not in your medical records. It's taking care of your buddy, and there are a lot of stigmas of going to sick call and all that stuff while you're on active duty. What I have found is what we're doing now, and that's reaching out and telling people that I think that stigma has kind of been washed down a little bit. And for me to get help, it took another fellow Green Beret, just a one-on-one conversation. Hey, Pete, hey, how you doing? I'm struggling with this. And the guy just opened up to me and said, I just went through a thing called Warrior Path, and it changed my life. And he told me why and how it changed it. And I'm like, holy shit, I need that too. And so I signed up. And I think the more of us that learn and get educated about these programs out there and what they do and how they work to get that comfort level to go out. And that's why I did it. I've seen a change with the stigma, but I'd like to open it up to the floor for others.
Yeah, just to add to that, I think we are seeing a bit of a turn. I think we're seeing a lot of guys and gals that have done a lot of things in their career, that have been stubborn for a lot of years, come forward and talk about their own personal struggles kind of unabatedly. I for one did that. There's people that say bad things about it, but by and large, sharing my own personal story, I saw thousands of people come forward and say, hey man, just hearing that you went through something that I felt, or that this happened to you and that happened to me as well. Hearing somebody else that I look up to say that really made the difference for me and helped me to go get some help. The other one is continuing to express to people how important a medical diagnosis is, whatever issues that you have. And I think there's a lot of people spreading that message, that whether you do it through traditional or non-traditional channels, learning and understanding some of the things physiologically and psychologically that may be awry with you is the start to recovery. Once you identify it, you can identify the tools and training that you need to recover. And I really think we are kind of turning the corner, because there's so many great people out there doing good things right now.
Yeah, I just add on to that. Joe, when I started with this stuff, most of it was external to our community, meaning like there were not people in our community doing this work. And over the past 10, 12 years, I've watched guys step out of the uniform, figure things out, do their work, and then turn back around and help the community, which I think is like really special to us. And so like having models in the community, Tom's a great example. So like he stands out, he's like, hey man, like this is everything I've been through. And not only that, because like everyone nods their head, right? But like here's how you get through it, right? Like that's the most important part. And so having like these elders in the community that have done the work that now like pass the torch back. I also think that like we have massive access to new ideas, right? Like 15, 20 years ago, like the culture was the way it was, and it was like hyper insulated, and there weren't these like ideas that were just absorbing into it. And so now like guys can go on the internet, they can go on social media, they can learn from people outside of like this very insular, very everybody's the same kind of community, and hear different things. And then I'd say the last, like, it's just new times too. Like dudes talking about vulnerability and emotional like access like wasn't happening 10, even 5 years ago. And I think that's an advancement, I just think, with men in general, to be able to like step out of this caricature of what it means to be masculine and to take on these new roles and to show like, hey, I can still be a warrior and paint my daughter's toenails and not be ashamed by it, right? Like those, and like, but dudes like hold on to that, right? So if a dude's getting his balls busted for doing that, you think he's going to go get help? It's like, no. And so I think it's great to see guys going to get help while they're in uniform. I think that takes a huge signal off. I still think it's there, right? We're still dealing with some really sad situations and suicides in our community that, when you look at them, you don't understand, right? It's like, how did this happen? How did this get through? But I think as you look at community and access to ideas and just this like new movement for men, I think all these things are starting to like work together. And Pete said it best. It's like, dude, a friend of mine went through PATH, came back to me and said, you got to do this. Like for every person we see, there's usually like 4 to 6 recommendations that we get back, a few months later. And so like the community is working, I think, internally to help each other. And that's a special thing. Again, like that doesn't happen everywhere. So I think it's great.
And Joe, I think the generation gap happens too. I have guys in my chapter, a lot of my guys in the SFA chapter out here in Hawaii are the older generation, the Vietnam era guys that didn't get that welcome home, that the Army started, changing some of the GWAT, the post 9/11 guys. We started getting counseling or briefings and whatnot when we got home, knowing that something changed, going from shooting people in the face to like, now you're in the living room with your wife and then you're going back again. The Vietnam era guys, I don't think got that same kind of love. And I've seen a bunch of our guys, whether it's suicide, whether it's divorces, and whether it's going to take some of us that have heard some of this to do exactly what, Carlos did to me. And that's going to talk to these guys that are struggling. And I see that they're struggling and they just want someone to talk to. And so maybe, that older generation, there is a lot more stigma than the newer generation.
Yep. Appreciate that. I went in 77 and got released in 97 when I broke my back in a parachute jump in the PI. So when I came back to Okinawa with first group, the doctor said, I've started having paralysis in my legs. Doctor said, you jump, you're out. Come off jump status and we'll keep you in the Army. I was an E7. I didn't have any other option. I become from an 18 Charlie back to an 11 Bravo. They sent me to Benning to be a black hat at jump school. I said, really? I can't jump anymore. You want me to be a black hat? Okay. I said, thank you very much. Then they wanted me to be a platoon sergeant in the 82nd. And the doctor said, no, you're going home. 214, there's the back gate. Go home. And there was no one at the back gate. I had to wait a year for my paperwork to get through the VA. I called them, been a year, and the lady said, I have nothing on you, except this morning I packed up long-term storage and there was this folder that said Joseph Hastings. Let me go look at that. Oh, I was so busy I didn't open your folder, and right there is your paperwork on top. how lucky was I? I talked to the person who was handling my folder. And I'm out there on the backside going, what is going on out there? Who's there to help us? You know, that is why I started the Special Forces Network. SF guys trying to help SF guys find work, someone to reach out. And then John had Oasis. He started that up, you know. So I'm seeing these programs, and what's being presented here is fantastic that I'm seeing openness. We still guard each other. We are a team, and we'll defend each other from the outside. But I'm worried that we're defending ourselves too much inside, and that's why I brought the question up. You know, we're a family. We need to met certain. We may not like you, but we're a family. That tab makes us one. We just, you know, need to let them know it's okay to cry. Just don't cram my beer.
Now, thanks for sharing that, Joe. Anybody else?
Yeah, Pete, I actually just, if I can real quickly talk about that question. One of the things, I mean, it is grassroots, completely agree with that, right? It is the word of mouth is always the best way. I think, at least for me, what we've seen a shift is just in the young people, right? Is a more willingness to go through and do that, whether it was for COVID or whatever it is, but you got a younger generation who's much more willing, I guess, to accept that and to ask those questions coming in. But, you know, for me, one of the things that I am really pushing for, Marine Corps is my background, so I'm pushing it as much as I can in the Marine Corps right now. Is it a lot of these things, like I know that we teach, can all be taught beforehand, right? If we can somehow get these things into the service so that they understand how to take care of themselves on the front end before they actually have bad things occur, right? And we also have to realize that 74% of the people joining now all self-identify with having at least one traumatic event in their life before joining, 60% with 2 or more, right? So we've already got the influx happening there. But if we can begin to put that inside of the training on active duty, that then, you know, they carry these skills with them throughout their time of service and afterwards, and now they're able to take care of themselves on the back end, right? And so we begin to shorten that number. That's where I'm trying to get to eventually. So because something's got to change, right? If you look at, there's approximately 345 service members take their life on active duty on an annual basis. In the civilian community, right, with veterans, that happens in 5 to 6 days. And so when you look at it for me, when I began to look at it from that aspect, it's pretty daunting. So anyway, that's what I got.
Yeah, appreciate you sharing that, because I remember talking to you about getting that into the system at the Marine Corps level, and maybe other branches might take foot as well, seeing how successful it is. Almost like the resiliency training, but much deeper training for our folks. Anybody else? About 7 minutes.
Yeah, I'll just echo some of the things that were said. Somebody mentioned that it took they saw their applicants were 13 years out from service before they decided to come back in. I know from working at the VA, we had Vietnam veterans that were 50 years out, right? And after going through the treatment, they were like, man, I wish I would have did this sooner. I wish you guys were around when we got out. And I mean, I'm glad they feel better, and I'm glad that they want to advocate for, you know, for other people to get better as well. But I would ask them, like, you know, if we were around, or if I was like standing there when you got back, would you have come? And they weren't ready. So I'm sorry that it took so long, and I'm sorry that they had to go through all the pain that they had to go through. But when they were finally ready, like, then it worked. So I'm glad that there's this myriad of different options available. So when the person finally decides, like, I'm ready to do this, like, there's options, there's other people out there to advocate for them. So, and if we can change, you know, the more people that we have to advocate, the more that we can change the culture, maybe we can expedite some of this preparedness and kind of speed that up so people are more willing to go and get the help, because more than one of the presenters talked about like doing the work. And you know, even if somebody just calls to just seek information and just kind of see like, you know, what would that look like? Maybe I'm not ready, but I want to know what's out there. Like that's a start, you know, talking to peers, looking at online at all the different treatment options, whether we call it treatment or we call it something else. We make up a name for it, like just getting that seed planted so we can just expedite this timeline so they don't have to be in pain and stuff for as long as possible.
Yeah, exactly. And I know JD Morris, who's on this call, our fourth symposium, half a year ago, he talked about his story and his struggle with the transition, the healthcare, the benefits, health wellness, mental toughness. And it was a great opening, much like Tom Satterley did with the All Secure, you know, a leader in our community. Like, holy shit, that guy went through that. Now he's opening up. JD did the same thing. And JD, thanks for doing that. More of us need to do that with each other, with our chapters, with our, you know, plan to do something probably on our global gathering of Green Berets crews to reiterate this topic because it's so important for our members to know. All right. Any last alibis?
I'd like to say one thing there, Pete. Going back to probably the oldest part of this program today, but it took me years before I could go up to DC and go to the wall. And you know, it's that with I think a lot of people.
And it's gonna, I think, Len, it's gonna take some of us younger guys joining the association to recognize some of that and pull people aside to talk to them about it. If they're not gonna do something publicly, they likely will privately.
And a lot of the guys in my era, when they finally broke down and went to the wall, they had to have somebody with them to hold their hands. So a simple thing like that. Now you've got good programs working here, but it's just in a simple thing like that, the catharsis that's involved with that type of situation is, well, and being able to go further than that with some of the other programs past that particular point.
Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Last call. Well, thank you, especially for our distinguished speakers today, taking your time out to share those stories. And thanks, Jeff, for I will definitely reach out to the SOCOM Warrior Care Program that had a consolidated list of these type of organizations that I'll put together for our community and share with others. Thank you so much, and hope you guys have a great week. Reach out anytime. You know, we're one small community across different branches, across different, you know, across the world. So we're here to help each other out, and that's what SF4Life is all about.
Across different oceans, Pete?
Yeah. Yep. The Pacific for me. Oh, one more message. Thanks, Pete. All right. All right, guys. Aloha. And those who haven't signed up for the cruise, hey, if you're a friend of SF, come on out with 2,000 Green Berets on a ship out in the and I hope to do like a joint South one down the road. But if this thing turns out really beneficial financially and the camaraderie that we're going to have in October, it's going to be epic. 2,000 Green Berets on one ship, no drinking and driving. Everything's in one place. We got some fabulous speakers lined up. Speaking of Gary Sinise, Lieutenant Dan Band's looking at coming in, being our sailaway party, and doing some really fun stuff on this. So learn more at our Special Forces Association site. Thank you, everyone. Take care.